All right, welcome back, everybody. We are going to be doing an HDMI port on an Xbox One S console. This is the motherboard out of the shell. So if you are wondering how to take the console apart, there's tons of videos on YouTube with very detailed instructions on how to get these consoles taken apart. And this is the HDMI port out that we're going to be working on here. So let's get under the scope. Let's have a look here and make sure we don't have any busted pins or anything like that. There is visible damage on the other side, which once we get the port out, I will be showing you guys that. So everything looks okay here. So what we need to do is I'm going to add leaded solder to pretty much all of these things here. The joints, the pins. It's going to make it easier to get these out of here. And we're going to do the same thing for the joints on the back. And this is where the strength comes from on these ports. I mean, you can see the crack there too. Check that out. Right there. So that's going to make the HDMI port loose. And then on the corner over here, 2 or 3 pins are busted off. So this system most likely took a spill, fell over, or they moved it with the port still intact. You know, something like that. So very common repairs. All you need is the right tools. I would not attempt this if you just have some basic soldering iron and you've never done it before. At that point, I would just take it somewhere, not risk breaking your console. So we're going to do the same thing we did for this side here. So we are going to add a lower melting point solder, which is leaded solder, and mix it here with the unleaded solder that comes from the factory, so that we can use less heat to get this poured off of here. Excuse me. See if I can find my standoffs. Yeah, here they are. So I made these so it holds. They're aluminum, so they're not like too crazy, but it's gonna hold the board about 1 inch off of my mat here, so we don't have to get too much heat hitting the desk. And now what we're going to do, we'll go back to our scope here. I'm going to heat this up and let this guy fall right out of there, okay? And it went flying underneath here. There it is. You can see, look at the pins. Oh, I think that's 3 of them there. Whoops. You can see why we're doing the replacement job now. 1, 2, 3, 4 pins completely destroyed. So this thing definitely took a fall. No picture is going to be produced from that, I can tell you for sure. So I'm going to clean up. It's good to clean up after every step. You don't have to, but it's definitely a good practice to get into. because it makes it easier to clean up in the end when it's all not caked on and flux is hardened and all that. So I like to clean up after every step if I can. There's no reason I can't. Alright, let's go back over here. And this is what we're going to be looking at now. Let's check it out. So it looks pretty good. Nope, none of the pads were ripped up. No trace rebuild is needed, which is very good. Let's just clean this up a little bit. And then what I want to do is completely clean out these joints of all of their unleaded solder and just completely replace it with leaded solder once we get the port taken care of. So I'm going to add a little bit of flux, even though we just cleaned it, right? Make it dirty again. Just a little bit. And then we're going to get a wick. I like using the wick over the solder suckers and stuff. I just have better luck, I think, overall. But if you like the solder suckers, that's cool. And sometimes this will work with just the soldering pin and the wick. Sometimes you have to use some hot air to fully get the solder out of these joints, but looks like we got lucky. There's one. Start right here, a little bit further up, where the solder's not so deep into the wick. Look at that magic. Isn't that cool? One of my favorite things to watch on the microscope is the solder flowing. Like that. And I like that. That looks really good. So let's get this in view for you guys. And we're going to watch these and you're going to see how this works. So all I'm going to do is flow this into place. We can use over 150 degrees less now that it's all leaded solder, which is going to make this job a lot easier. So we're going to heat it up. And then let me get my tweezers, because we're just going to put pressure on the top when we do this. Okay, looks good. And we'll keep the pressure. Keep holding. Don't let the pressure off, and you'll notice them change here. There they go, see? Look at all of them cooling. Now we can release. Looks pretty good. Zoom in a little bit more here. Get a better take on this. So just because the tops don't have solder doesn't mean the entire bottom half of this isn't soldered in. So just because they're not covered in solder, that doesn't mean that it's like less reliable or something. This is good enough as long as they don't move when we test them. If they do move, if we get like a couple of them moving, I just go over them with a soldering iron with no solder on the iron, because the solder is already here. And just, you know, ensure that they're not going to move. So let's go in here and test these. We'll have a Northridge moment together. And we're good. So now we need to do the joints. So we're going to go through the back here. And we're going to take care of the joints from this side. And we're going to flow the solder down through. So now let's look at the difference when we go to the other side. Oh, absolutely. Yep, we are good. A good example here. So we can actually see. It's almost gone up. You can see the front one too. See how the solder is coming through the joints. Very nice. So now we can just clean up. Go back here and we'll put some thermal paste on here. Of course, I cleaned this off and also cleaned the heat sink. And let me get this all together and then we'll test it, and I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so we have everything we need to test it back together now. Hard drive, disk drive. I mean, literally you don't need the disk drive in there, but whatever. Power supply, and then the RF board on the front to obviously power it on here. So let's get it powered on. There's our light. And then let's plug it in. HDMI port, and that's going to go over to my cam link. So we should see it on screen. And there you have it. We have a successful HDMI port replacement. There's no artifacting, flickering, or anything crazy going on. So we have a clear picture, 1080p, which is the output we want to see, and that's all there is to it. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I'm also taking requests for repairs, so if you guys want to see how to repair something, I work on things all the way from the Atari all the way to the newest consoles that came out back in 2020, so the Xbox Series X, PS5. But yeah, put some requests. GameCube, NES, just throw something out there and I can grab it out of storage and we can look at it together. So thank you so much, and everyone have a good day, and I'll see you next time. Glad we were able to save this console.